Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today's story is about one parent who refused to roll over and pay for a hospital's mistake. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Nickel and dime medical bill. My child's pediatrician used an incorrect diagnosis code for part of her well-child visit earlier this year, and it's turned into a months-long headache that I refuse to just roll over and pay for. Because I work in the healthcare field, I have a pretty solid understanding of how billing works. I know how diagnosis and procedure codes have to match for insurance to process claims correctly. When I got the bill back and saw the code they used, I immediately knew what had happened. The doctor made a simple coding error that flipped this from a fully covered well-child visit into something insurance denied. Normally, this would be an easy fix. Just correct the code, resubmit, and insurance pays it. Instead, I've spent months going in circles with the hospital system. The pediatrician's part of one of those huge, bureaucratic, soulless healthcare networks where every phone call is routed through 3 different departments before someone finally gives you an answer. And the answer is always, sorry, we can't change it. It's not even a large sum of money, which makes this all the more ridiculous. I know for a fact I'm not responsible for paying this. If they just fixed the code, it'd be covered immediately. But no one will admit there was an error. No one will resubmit the claim. Every time I call, I get polite stonewalling and a fresh copy of the bill in the mail a week later. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I called, explained the situation, and even provided references from my insurance plan's guidelines. When that got me nowhere, I asked to speak to a supervisor. Still nothing. Months passed, and every time I saw another notice show up in my mailbox, my blood boiled just a little more. Finally, I decided if they were going to dig their heels in, I was going to make sure they regretted it. First, I left some negative reviews online. Nothing petty or dramatic, just a factual account of what happened. I stated clearly that this provider made a billing error that cost me money and refused to fix it despite months of requests. While it felt good to warn other parents, it didn't quite give me the satisfaction I was looking for. Then I had an idea. Maybe I'd pay the bill in person with buckets of nickels and dimes. It's not that I couldn't afford it, it's that I refused to let them have the satisfaction of thinking they were right. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that would just punish the front desk staff. They didn't make the error, and I didn't want to take my frustration out on them. That's when inspiration struck. I realized I could Apple Pay the bill 5 cents at a time. See, when you pay with Apple Pay, the merchant has to pay a flat transaction fee every single time, no matter how small the payment is, which means that if I'm being forced to pay a bill that never should have existed, I can at least make sure it costs them money to collect it. So now every few days I send them another 5-cent payment. It takes me about 5 seconds, and each one chips away at the balance while also dinging them with a processing fee. They can't refuse the payments, money's money, but by the time the balance is zero, they'll have spent far more than they ever stood to gain. And while I'm at it, I've decided it's time to switch to a smaller, local pediatric office where the billing department actually knows my name and takes responsibility when they make mistakes. If the big hospital system insists on treating their patients like walking wallets, they can enjoy their steady trickle of nickel and dime payments for the next several months. I may not have won the coding battle, but I'm absolutely winning the war. The best part is that you're not hurting the wrong people. You didn't take it out on the front desk staff or scream at some poor rep on the phone. You just found a way to make the system itself feel the pain. And our second story. How I turned Dad's lecture on waste into a comedy of errors. My dad came to stay for a couple of weeks. In the first few days, he wanted some stuff printed off, local map, opening times of attractions. I printed his stuff. Single-sided. With the aging and cantankerous printer, double-sided is an effort and wastes almost as much paper as it saves. Trigger. He never misses an opportunity to be bombastic and pompous. I get a lengthy lecture on wasting the world's resources, squandering my money, being disrespectful to the family values of frugality and care for the environment that he had so lovingly imprinted on me during a long childhood. In future, he told me, be sure to always print double-sided. Malicious compliance. He'd ordered some stuff online during his stay and a couple of things needed to be returned. Would I print the return label and packing slips? Sure thing, anything for him. I printed them double-sided. So one sheet of paper had the label that goes on the outside of the package and the return authorization slip that goes on the inside. Fallout. "What the H am I supposed to do with this?" he asked. "Dunno," I said. "Maybe cherish it as an example of our family values and saving the world by always printing double-sided." After sufficient time teasing him had passed, I showed him the printer has a copy function, but continued to lament the waste in using it to reprint one side. Good for you on continuing the sarcasm. Bonus points if you gave him heck for using 2 separate boxes for shipping the items back. And our next story. $3,000 theft costs her $125,000. Satisfying family revenge story. Shortly after my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, my formerly estranged half-sister, let's call her Karen, swooped back into our lives like she was the hero of the story. She quit her job and announced to everyone that she would sacrifice everything to move in and help care for Dad. At first, I'll admit, it sounded like the right thing to do. We were overwhelmed with Dad's diagnosis, and having an extra set of hands seemed like a blessing. Since she'd left her job, we all agreed to pay her a small stipend, about $300 a week, to help cover her lost income. Karen smiled, played the doting daughter, and spoke endlessly about how we were all going to pull together as a family. But it didn't take long for things to shift. Without warning, Karen managed to get Dad to sign durable power of attorney. No one remembers him being completely lucid when this happened. In fact, we all suspected he wasn't in a state to understand what he was signing, but suddenly, there it was, a legal document giving her control over his finances and medical decisions. My mother tried to stay involved where she could. Their finances were separate, but Karen quickly made herself the gatekeeper for everything. And then she started dropping the ball. One of her first responsibilities was handling Dad's pension paperwork. All she had to do was file some routine documents to lock in his benefits. She didn't because of her negligence. Dad missed out on an $8,000 one-time payout and had his monthly pension reduced by $300. That was money he desperately needed for medication, doctor visits, and basic living expenses. It didn't end there. Within weeks, we noticed Dad's savings account, around $3,000, had been completely drained. When we confronted Karen, she didn't deny it. She didn't even seem ashamed. She just shrugged and said, "Well, it was for Dad's care." Like that made everything okay. 6 days later, our father hung himself in the basement. Even writing that now feels like a gut punch. The grief was unbearable, and the guilt that followed was worse. We all wondered if the stress, the missing money, and the loss of control over his own life had been the final straw for him. When the will was read, it turned out Dad had left everything to my mom, the house, the insurance payout, his remaining possessions. Us kids were left with sentimental items, which was fine by me. What mattered was that Mom was provided for. Karen, on the other hand, turned pale as the lawyer read the document. She had clearly been expecting some kind of payout, and when she realized she wasn't getting a cent, her face went from shock to anger. She didn't say a word, just stood up, stormed out, and slammed the door on her way out. A month later, we finally pieced together what had happened with the missing savings. Legally, Karen had done nothing wrong. Power of attorney gave her full access, but morally, she'd robbed our father blind in the last weeks of his life. We confronted her again, telling her she needed to pay the money back. We even offered her a generous deal. Pay it back in installments over 2 years, interest-free. Just make it right. Karen smirked and refused. She told us we were overreacting and that we should be grateful she stepped up when no one else would. That was the last conversation we ever had with her. We cut all contact and haven't looked back. Here's the part that still makes me smile. Karen never knew that my mom had included her in her will. Half of a $250,000 estate was meant to go to her someday, but after everything she'd done, the lies, the theft, the refusal to take responsibility, I suggested Mom change her will. She agreed. Mom rewrote the will, removing Karen completely and naming me as the sole beneficiary. Karen stole $3,000 from Dad and cost herself $125,000 in the long run. And honestly, it feels like justice. She thought she was clever when she drained his account, but in the end, her greed made sure she'll never see another cent from this family again. The power of attorney part really stings because it's meant to protect someone in a vulnerable state, not give a family member a blank check to do whatever they want. Missing out on $8,000 and lowering your dad's pension by $300 a month because she couldn't be bothered to handle paperwork is already awful, but draining his savings? That's crazy. And our last story. Karen and coffee beans for the boss. In the commercial pool equipment sales department, everyone knew Karen. Not because she smiled in the hallways or saved deadlines. Karen was simply everywhere. Where there was a warehouse, there was Karen. Where there was a call, there was Karen. If someone moved a stapler 3 centimeters, Karen would already be there with a verdict. That's not how things are done in a professional company. 10 years on staff had turned her into a walking user manual. She really did know every bolt in the catalog, could tell pump models apart by their sound, could distinguish a chlorine generator from a salt generator with her eyes closed if it so much as breathed differently. At first, people respected her. Experience is experience. But respect is a fragile thing. Over the years, it became encrusted with resentment because Karen, like a well-polished plaque that says, "Reminder," didn't just report, she lectured. When she was promoted to senior coordinator, something clicked inside her. She started bossing around even the department manager, as if to say, "I've been here the longest, I know how it should be." Her daily mini-performances became a new office tradition. "Why aren't the papers in folder A?" she'd call out, walking past other people's desks. "Who put the pen in the wrong cup? If I say bring coffee, you bring coffee." The line finally snapped after an incident with her friend. Friday, a corner bar, a petty quarrel, and by Monday, Karen was already officially dissatisfied with her friend's performance. Not in a week, not in 2, after 2 months of exhausting little jabs, the friend resigned on her own. It was as if Karen had tasted power on her tongue and started salting it daily. Colleagues put up with it. Maybe a midlife crisis, they shrugged. HR kept a few neatly filed complaints on Karen, but still within preventative measures. The company was small, and every conflict was like a wave in a pool. It hits the wall, rolls back, and then it's quiet again. A month after Karen's coronation, a new guy joined the team, Aiden. 27, business school grad, calm, tidy, the type who reads the brief twice and checks 3 times if that's really what's needed. On his first day, he arrived before everyone else and set up his own station, notebook, pen, a small pocket notepad in his shirt pocket. Mama's boy, thought Karen. He's gonna drown, thought the warehouse. Finally, someone to help with quotes, thought the manager. Ah, the new kid. Karen materialized by his desk like the shadow of a service manual. "Get ready to work. This isn't college. This is a real job." From that day on, Aiden got a steady stream of "You're young and strong. You can help." He hauled boxes of nozzles, sorted archives from past years, made copies for accounting, ran to the warehouse, but quickly, "We need it now." He didn't object. He thanked people. He smiled. He asked if he was doing things right. In the evenings, he left fast, finishing the sales proposal Karen had been putting off for a week because it's not my priority. And yet, even patient people have a boundary. It looks like a thin thread, until you tug on it. That day, the office was drifting along in its slow post-lunch tempo, printers buzzing, the warehouse reconciling shipments, marketing giggling in the conference room. At reception, as if on stage, Karen was talking to a courier and signing a waybill when suddenly, sharp, loud, "Aiden!" He walked over. "Run to Starbucks." Karen didn't even look at him. "Give me an almond milk latte, double shot cinnamon on top. I was running around all morning. I don't have time." Aiden, calm as ever, raised his eyes. "I'm sorry, but I'm not a courier, and we have a great coffee machine here. I can make you a latte right now if you'd like." Karen went pale, as if she'd been splashed with chlorine from a dosing pump. "What did you say?" through clenched teeth. "You've been here 2 months and you're already arguing? Either you run now or I'm going to management and you'll be fired by the end of the day." Icy silence. The office door swung open and the hallway seemed to drop a couple of degrees. Out walked Miss Grace, the owner of the company. Stylish woman in her 60s, a light scarf with a small geometric pattern, a gaze that could stop the rustle of paper. "What's going on here?" Calm, without raising her voice, Karen switched instantly. "Oh, Miss Grace, I'm just teaching the newbie some discipline. He won't carry out tasks. He's rude to his seniors. I'm responsible for order here." Miss Grace's eyes slid over Karen and came to rest on Aiden. A barely noticeable smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Warm, almost homelike. "He's my grandson," she said just as evenly. The office froze. Reception became a stage with no sound. Someone in marketing dropped a paperclip. Your grandson? Karen repeated with dry lips. That's right, Grace replied, and I've been watching how you behave for a while. We have 5 official complaints against you from colleagues for bullying and rudeness, and today's scene is the last straw. She paused for a moment as if letting the silence say more than words. You're fired. Pack your things. Karen stood as if bound by an invisible tie-down strap. Then she swallowed. But I've worked here 10 years. And in that time, you should have learned respect, Grace answered coolly. Unfortunately, you only learned how to yell. Karen tried to pull herself together. Maybe a warning? I held the department together when you wrecked a friendship in a Friday bar and started methodically improving her work on Monday, Grace asked quietly. I've read the chat logs and internal memos. This isn't about coffee, it's about culture. She turned to Aiden. Go to the lap pool conference room. Wait for me. We'll review the pricing grid for municipal tenders. And you, Karen, she looked straight at her, go to HR, now. It all happened without shouting. Karen walked silently into HR and an hour later came out with a cardboard box holding a potted cactus, a forgotten charger, and that same plaque. Remember to label. For a moment, she stopped by the coffee machine as if wavering between an apology and a fresh dose of anger. But in the end, she just left. The door didn't slam, it simply clicked like a switch. Karen ordered a latte from Starbucks and got an HR cappuccino instead. Extra foam, topped with a pink slip. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.